62, joined by my friend and Zenny 62 vlogger colleague, Joseph Amenduras. How you doing, Joseph?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thought you were going to conk out on me.
No. I was just trying to do some research before I got on.
Oh, cool.
Hey, everybody. Cool. Welcome to a special late night edition of Zenny 62, joined by my friend and Zenny 62 vlogger colleague, Joseph Amenduras. How you doing, Joseph?
Yeah, nice. So I was originally going to talk about the fact that the Raiders are basically going to be returning to Oakland, Alameda, for training camp because of concerns of COVID-19. It doesn't even look like the Raiders are going to be at their common facility in Napa for training camp. The team facilities have to be used, and that means the Raiders will be returning to 1221 Harbor Bay Parkway in Alameda. But I saw something, and the reason why I called an audible was because of the events surrounding the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. And because of that, I did a complete about face when I happened to see this. And it's Mark Davis' statement on the murder of George Floyd. And here, a statement from Raider owner Mark Davis. And it goes like this: to watch a man be murdered by a uniformed police officer kneeling on the man's throat for 9 minutes while 3 uniformed police officers either assisted or stood by watching is disturbing in too many ways. To be honest, I'm surprised that the resulting violence hasn't been much worse. Emotions are high, the temperature is hot, and there is static in the air. But burning your brother's house down is ultimately not the answer. Not only do we have to tell people there's something wrong, we have to come up with solutions. That's the challenge in front of us, not only as Americans, but human beings, Mark Davis. And so then I happened to see a conversation that he had with Ed Graney, which is also on the website of the Raiders. And I started to play it for a bit and make some comments from that, because I thought it was quite interesting that he would take up the subject given what I'm about to share with you. And so and here it is. Mark Davis discusses the importance of finding solutions and amid high tensions. And here's how it plays out. I haven't heard it, so this is new
Playmaker. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah. You released a statement last night, and it was powerful and emotional, and what you thought about what had happened and how you wanted to kind of start this conversation nationally. Is it hard to release statements on stuff that seems to keep happening? And when you wanted to say your thoughts, what was paramount in your mind?
Well, I wanted to make sure that they were well thought out. I guess when you talk about making a statement nationally, obviously we did, but I think that where we have to start working is locally on the answers. But this is a very emotionally charged time. I think coupled with the coronavirus right now, we're sitting on a tinderbox anyway, with people being pretty much in their homes for the last 2.5 months, children not being able to go to school. And I think it's been mentally draining on people. And then for something like this to happen, it's a pretty tough time right now.
Mark, can you explain how important it is for your role and maybe other sports owners as well to begin to enact change by bringing together community leaders to come up with solutions to the problem, as you expressed yesterday on ESPN that you've already had conversations with the Nevada Attorney General as well as Clark County Sheriff Joseph Lombardo?
That's right. As I said, that we have to come up with solutions. And I think that starts on the local level. I don't think you can do it any other way. And I reached out to Attorney General Aaron Ford and Sheriff Joe Lombardo and they were very open to getting together with some of our players and coaches and just starting a discussion. I believe it's important that the Raiders coming to a new market, to a new area, coming to the Valley here, that we start off on the right foot. And I think we can build something really great between the community, the team, and have it flow throughout the community here.
Yeah, you've been very positive about bringing your team here. Obviously, you're excited. Everyone sees the progress of Allegiant Stadium. I remember the groundbreaking, though, and you had the 58 rays of light because of the Harvest Festival shooting. Now this, bring me through that in terms of your feelings about the town of Las Vegas. I mean, to bring the national level to a local, to what you're seeing on the Strip, what you're seeing on Fremont, and how you want to get beyond that with the protests and the looting over the last several days.
Wow. That's a good question, Aaron.
Come on.
No, I got you. You know, I've been here throughout the whole virus situation. So I've been living here in Las Vegas for the last 3 months. And I see the people of Las Vegas rise together in adversity. And it's Vegas strong. And I have no doubt that we will rise from the ashes here and have a shining moment very soon.
Las Vegas Raiders owner Mark Davis here with us on ESPN Las Vegas. Then what do you do when you have frustration from your own players? Because I know that for many years, you have been able to at least bridge the gap between the frustration that your players have and to the way they want to go and speak out on their own. What are your thoughts on having players and athletes in your organization go out of their way to go and express their emotions on social media or otherwise?
Well, you know, throughout my youth being around the Raiders and football, I never really saw color. Every year there were new players on the roster, players from the South, some from the Deep South, others from the North, all over the country. I got to see and hear different points of view, all coming together for a common cause, and that was to be a Raider. And back in the day, my father had black and white teammates rooming together in training camp, on the road, and it just was never an issue in being the Raiders. So I sympathize with the players, and when they have something to say, I've always said to them that I'll be there with them, by their side. Initially last year, now it's not last year, but it was back in 2017 when the kneeling for the national anthem issue was up. I initially told the players that I would prefer that they wouldn't speak out against things while they were in Raider uniform. Being a Raider was just that. And that if they had something to say and they took off their uniform, they could say something. But certain things happen and in society and in real life, and it made me change my opinion on that. And I felt, well, I think if the players can make a difference, and if they can say something that will bring more discussion around an issue, then it was their right to go ahead and do it.
Well, you, as a young man, you were able to witness the unrest in Oakland and in the Bay Area a long time ago, and you even had Tommy Smith come and light the torch for the Raiders. Did you feel like the community back in Oakland and the Bay Area those years ago, do you think that they did enough to bridge the gap? Because it seems like we're falling into a repeating pattern of generational racism.
You know, I'm not going to blame that on the Bay Area or anywhere else per se. It is something that we've seen. It's you know, Tommy Smith in 1968 making that statement and everything else. And it just, I still think we're in the same place that we were really when it comes to that. But there's obviously been progress in many areas, but there's so much more progress that needs to be done. You know, I have a lot of good friends on the Oakland Police Force. They have been special people. They really are really good people. And I think, you know, people misunderstand it's us versus them because it's really not. I think police have one of the toughest jobs there is, in keeping us safe at all times. And it's sometimes they're being judged by the actions of the few. And I don't think that's fair either. So I give great credit to the police officers in Oakland and the Bay Area. They've been great to us throughout the years. I think that the Metro here and the sheriffs are fantastic people as well. And I'm just so thankful that Sheriff Lombardo and Attorney General Floyd are anxious to sit down with us and map out a plan for the future.
You spoke about your father, as you often do. If you're with your father today, what would he say about what's going on? What would he think perhaps a solution might be, as you talked about in your own statement?
Well, again, solutions are tough. It's people. It's real life. It's. I don't know what he would say. He's more of a action kind of guy, and to get things done. And in the long run, that's the way that we want to be as well. That I would like to be. At times, though, you have to bring things out in the open and speak your mind, so to speak, just to get a conversation going. And I think that's what my statement had to do with.
Yep.
And I didn't want to step around the issue. I wanted to step right into it.
You spoke of the pandemic, Allegiant Stadium. We have to bring an update. Bring us up to date on Allegiant Stadium. The pandemic, we know everything's virtual right now. I'm assuming it's your hope that everything's off on time. But how have you been able to deal with going week to week, month to month, with dealing of the uncertainty of what might happen?
Welcome to being a Raider, Ed. That's basically how we live our lives. You think everything's going great, the stadium's on time, everything else, and then all of a sudden real life steps in the way.
Yeah.
And you have to be prepared for those types of issues. As I said, and I'll say it again, the least important thing in life is to score at halftime. And until you get the job done, you just don't know. So when we do that ribbon cutting, you may see me wipe a bead of sweat off my brow.
And Mark, you said in a statement going back to the murder of George Floyd, you said you'd be honest. You were surprised that the resulting violence hasn't been much worse. What do you think is going to happen this week? Because it doesn't seem like the protests are any clearly stopping at any time soon. How do you think this is going to play out, and how effective can pro sports be to help the leaders of several communities start bridging the gap and beginning the lines of communication?
Well, again, you're speaking in a very uncertain time again, because there is no real pro sports going on right now. There's pro sports organizations. So as an organization, we can do a lot. But the fact of sports itself, how it helps with society as a whole, that tool isn't there right now. And that makes it a lot tougher. As I said, to be honest, I'm surprised that resulting violence hasn't been much worse. And that's based on the emotions are high, the temperature being very hot, and static in the air. And coupled with the coronavirus, it's just, as I said earlier, we're in a tinderbox. And I'm not sure that there's any true leaders out there speaking for anybody right now, and even asking what are these protests about, other than to say we need to get justice, obviously, and those things. And I think that on the that side, the protest side, I think they're getting a message across. But who are the leaders? Who are speaking for the people? And then you get late at night, and I don't know who it is that's causing the violence at night. I don't know whether it's other groups that are just in there to incite violence. I don't know. It's a whole new day in the virtual world. It's a virtual protest with actual people in the streets.
I have to ask, if you're jonesing for the WNBA, you're the Jack Nicholson of the Aces, and you're at front to middle court every time. You miss it?
No doubt about it. I can't wait to see them. Liz, Asia, Kelsey, Kayla. It's just I can't wait till they start playing again. I really do miss it.
Well, these are wonderful thoughts. We read your statement last night and wanted to catch up with you. I know we'll see you off in the next coming months, and hopefully everything will kick off on time, and that stadium will be as beautiful as everyone think it's going to be. So thanks for the few moments, and we appreciate it.
Let's hope we can come up with some answers here.
Oh, wonderful stuff. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
buddy.
See you. Bye.
I'm going to start off with something. I'm very disappointed because it's tone deaf. And I'm going to share with you stuff that I haven't talked about before. First of all, I'm going to share this with you because, it's really something that I think is appropriate that I should share right now. It's been a while since I have, but I'm going to. And right here, this was at the NFL Spring League meeting of March 27th, 2018. and I'll run it right now.
What are you doing? What are you guys doing, man? Good. Right over here. What's going on? What's going good? Nothing really. Got our financing. Got that.
Congratulations. Later, when I met the NFL, it was me. It's Mark Davis sitting back there, but he says he would appreciate it if I didn't talk to him. So I was like, oh, okay. So they have obviously official problem with my being critical of the project. And even though I'm critical of the project, I'm not them. So that's it. But he says they're done with the financing. You'll find out more from these guys. And, I'll talk to other people. Hey, for the record, it's very important to stay on point. The problems with the stadium project are these. First of all, the funding. The county side is designed in such a way that they were actually guaranteeing a particular flow of tax revenue from the hotel tax to be used to construct the stadium. The problem is that it's based, as anyone who's paid close attention to this project knows, on hotel revenue and also, by extension, visitation. Las Vegas visitation went down the first time in 2000, in some time, in 2017 over 2016, and it continued to go down when you compare January 18th, 2017, 2018, well, 2017, 2018. 2017 was actually greater than 2018. That has impacted and caused some concern with those who are consultants to the Stadium Authority and others that are involved in the financing of the project, including the county. The county's response is to have a system that does indeed protect it. Hoorah. But it would wind up in the Raiders getting less of the subsidy than they originally planned. If the market can't support the ask, the county has simply said it's not going to do it. Now, how that impacts the Raiders' ability to make up that gap is the big question. Then, moving forward, we have the soil. As you know, across the freeway, I-15, Mandalay Bay, and Luxor both had foundation problems causing those hotel facilities to sink at one point in their history. They had to spend several million to mitigate those problems. One additional hotel in the city center was never built because of them. Given that the Oakland Raiders Las Vegas Stadium is being built on similar land right across the freeway, how have the engineers worked to mitigate that problem? And then there's another problem. The project is just one block from, get this, one block from the Decatur Fault, an active earthquake fault. Okay? And there may be more problems that come as a result, and there will be cost overruns too. So with that, they must continue to be reported. And as a friend of mine in the media said, hey, the fact that he said, I don't want to talk to you means that you are doing something right. But it's not personal toward Mr. Davis. Believe it or not, I actually understand. And that's his right. Right, cool.
And so my point is that, and I share that because let me stop there. Because also there was a situation at Lee Steinberg's Super Bowl party in Atlanta in 2000, that same year, 2018, where he says, I went to 2000, yeah, that was 2018, but 2019, 2019. It carried over in 2019. But Lee Steinberg's Super Bowl party here in Atlanta that year of 2019, I went to congratulate Mark on getting an award from Lee Steinberg for his humanitarian effort with respect to the donation of $250,000 to Oakland schools. And he said, thanks. He says, oh, and he wanted to get into an argument with me about this in the middle of the Lee Steinberg Super Bowl party. He said, you said I was racist. And I have a number one rule. First of all, I've known Lee Steinberg since 1998. I know Mark's known him longer. But my point is, even if I didn't know Lee a long time, I'm not going to go to an event and have an argument with anybody. I don't care if it's an NFL owner. I don't care if it's a bartender who, disliked something that he thought he heard me say on one of my video blogs or whatever. I'm just not going to do that because I'm not there to do that. There's nothing to be gained from it, and there's no reason. But Mark had no problem trying to start an argument with me about race. And had I wanted to be that guy, I could have really embarrassed him. I could have brought up the situation that you just saw, because I'm the only black NFL media person in that area, okay? And one of a handful covering the owners meeting. Count 5, okay, if that. And the questions I asked were always, and the concerns I had were always professional, all right? But I was trying to remember something else that really bothered me that he said, and it had to do with T. Martin. And T. Martin, if you don't know the name, is a former quarterback of the Tennessee Vols, and who became a pretty good offensive coordinator, who at one point was considered to be for the Raiders head coaching job, or so it was thought. It turned out to be a Rooney Rule issue, okay? So when I found out about what Mark Davis said, this is what I chimed in with, and I'll show you right now, and I'll play it. And this was February 21st of 2018. This was just before I saw Mark at the owners meeting later that year.
Hey everyone, great Wednesday morning to you. Welcome to Zenny62 on YouTube. I was about to say Tuesday morning. Sometimes it's Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, but I digress. Got the coffee going right here. That's what you see. Ta-da. And woke up to the sad news regarding a remark that Oakland Raiders owner Mark Davis made in an interview in Sports Illustrated with, actually it's Monday Morning Quarterback, right? To S.L. Price, who's a seasoned writer. And Davis basically, when asked what would he have done if Gruden wasn't available, would he have retained Del Rio? And he said he would have no choice. He said, look, it's either that or spend $20 million and hire T. Martin. No. Now, T. Martin is the USC offensive coordinator and former Tennessee Volunteers successful quarterback during his college days, who is the person that one has to credit for the rise of Sam Darnold to the position of being considered by some as the best quarterback in the 2018 NFL draft upcoming. Now, I guess Mark Davis didn't get the memo, but T. Martin developed a line split approach with respect to the USC running game that is to be studied. And he has risen or caused the USC offense to rise to one of the best in the country, and has been rightly credited by USC for his success in the way of a contract extension. But T. Martin was also the Raiders' selected Rooney Rule interview. And Martin knew, or had to know, that the Raiders were intent, at least Mark Davis was intent on hiring John Gruden to be his head coach. But he flew up to Oakland for the interview anyway. Davis didn't have to make the remark that basically says this to SL Price. Hey, I only talked to T. Martin because he's a black guy and the NFL says I have to talk to a black guy before I hire the white guy Gruden that I really want. Okay? That's basically what Davis said. That's what Davis said. That's what it sounded like. And it hurt me personally. It saddened me personally to hear it because it reminded me of when at the 2015 NFL Spring League meeting, Mark Davis asked me to come up with a plan, a stadium plan to retain the Raiders in Oakland. And then my longtime friend, Mike Silver, is now with the NFL Network, was right there to witness it and put that on Twitter. Again, thank you, Mike. I've said that again and again and again. I can't thank you enough. So I went, to make a long story short, I developed a financial plan based around a kind of a stadium hotel resort concept. I brought in the hotel not because it was just some pie in the sky idea, but it was based on something that was going on in Cleveland, which I felt would work financially. And when I built the spreadsheet and ran the numbers, it did work. So I then cold called Diane Paulway of Piper Jaffray Investment Banker. She's a managing director. And to make another long story short, she assembled a deal team. They looked at my spreadsheet, blessed the spreadsheet, said it would work, and we were ready to talk either with the Oakland Raiders or the city of Oakland or both. And in the case of the Raiders, they were in the middle of an E&A, but they could have easily, returned my call, even talked to me, had me in for a meeting just to have, general conversation, and never did that. And then when Mark saw me, he acted at first like he was afraid. He thanked me, but then acted like he was afraid to talk to me about it. This was at the Schaumburg NFL owners meeting. I'll never forget it. And since then, he's always acted like he was afraid to talk to me. Just simple conversation where you look a person in the eye and you talk about the weather, right? So I always put this out of my mind. I tried to thought, okay, it can't be because of race, right? It can't be. And then this T. Martin matter came up, and it brought up the whole issue of how I was treated all over again. It reminds me of something that Bell Hooks wrote in a book called We Be Cool about black male masculinity, where she says that well-educated black men know to basically hide that they're smart, otherwise they'll get punished. And she further said that in terms of our development in American society, we always went for physical labor because it was less threatening to, the white establishment. That's sad. And Davis has to, he has to deal with that perception that he's carrying into the modern 21st century, that same idea that there's something wrong with a smart black guy, that just because he's black, he can't get the job done. That's wrong. That's completely wrong. In retrospect, I was always go back every time I think about this and think, well, Davis did ask me to form the plan, right? But then I thought, Mark Davis has never talked to me, doesn't know what I'm capable of doing. Maybe at the time, unless he talked to somebody else, but that was never evident to me. So I began to consider, maybe it was just all a joke to him. And then all of a sudden, he figured out that, hey, I could really do something. Surprise.
Yeah, so, and I bring that up because if you take a look at, there's something else that is important to know here, and it has to do with respect to the T. Martin issue that I brought up. If you type Mark Davis, T. Martin Raiders, FanBuzz also took note of what Davis had said about T. Martin, and had basically, you look at the headlines. Oakland Raider owner Mark Davis right here makes disparaging comment about former coaching candidate. All right. That was about T. Martin. Okay. And it says, when asked if he would have fired former head coach Jack Del Rio, had Gruden not been an option, Davis said, I don't see how I could have to spend $20 million and on top of that hire T. Martin. No. And so basically, and that he's a Rooney Rule person. All right. There was no reason to disparage T. Martin like that, and yet he wasted no time in doing so. Here's another account other than my video one. This is A to Z Sports out of Nashville, and there's T. Martin. Okay. And Oakland Raiders owner inadvertently insults T. Martin. And he says that thanks to the NFL's Rooney Rule, however, the Raiders had to interview minority candidates despite already having Gruden on board. Oakland satisfied this rule by interviewing Raiders assistant Bobby Johnson and former Tennessee Vols quarterback and current USC offensive coordinator T. Martin. Now, Martin isn't dumb. He, along with everyone else who closely follows football, knew he was only being interviewed so Oakland will be in compliance with the Rooney Rule. But Martin aspires to be a head coach at some point in his career, so it's a tremendous opportunity for him to get some interview experience and possibly make a few connections that could benefit him down the road. I don't blame him one bit for going along with the interview. That's where any mention of the interview should have stopped on the Raiders' side of things. Unfortunately, it didn't. Okay? And a Gruden profile piece for Sports Illustrated, and now you know what he said once again. Okay? And he says Davis could have stopped that sentence after and says, I don't see I could have, and just been fine. But his comments came off as disparaging. All right? And Mark's got to work on that. And in my case, the whole issue with Mark and the stadium came right after the same 2015 NFL Spring League meeting where I asked him if he was working behind Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf's back. And what Mark had done is, pretty much now for the history books, and where he had said or turned around to say basically that he was basically trying to get a stadium deal done, and but basically admitted, and for those that he all but basically admitted that he Davis was trying to build not in Oakland, and even as he's telling Raider fans there that he's going to build in Oakland, he also admits that he's trying to build in Southern California. And so for the purpose of the discussion, I'm going to fast forward to my discussion with him. Okay, here.
City. So what do you say? Is that something new to you?
No, we've
been
not
saying that
Sir, it's the pre-development expenditures that have been made, that have been publicly announced on the video, on the economic study that the Raiders were commissioned.
A video?
Hey, and the economic study and Carmen policy. I have a whole list of them. I'm happy to go through
Okay,
it with you.
excuse me. What do you guys want to know?
So are you moving to LA?
On the land deal
We're trying to get something done in Oakland. Okay? If we can get something done in Oakland, we're staying in Oakland. I've said that continually and consistently for the last 5 years.
But you hired Mr. Policy to work
Yeah,
for
we
you
have to
now,
hire.
right?
We hire people. Yeah, we do.
You see, it was after that exchange where Davis what happened was after that exchange, I wound up in a kind of a foyer next to the elevator with Mike Silver, Mark Davis. They were talking about the new PAT rule, and Will Kiss was off to my left. And I said to Mark, you should set up a task force for your stadium. And he started giggling, as you saw him do. And he said, what's a task force? And I started to explain it, and I realized I was going down a rabbit hole. And he said, you come up with it. And what I've noticed about Mark is if you have a disagreement with him, because he did this with Greg Jones, who they call Godfather Grizz of Forever Oakland. If he has a disagreement with you, he will try to, in a sense, make amends by asking you to do something. In Grizz's case, it was, hey, help me in Las Vegas. Or in my case, it was, hey, help me with my stadium. So in a sense, he means well, but it's also after he's done something, he knows that maybe he didn't quite handle the right way. And in my instance, he gave me a project that I didn't expect to get paid for. I was honored to be asked. Okay. And normally a person would think, hey, you know what? I'll be granted the respect of having a meeting. Okay. And sitting down and presenting my plan. But I didn't get that. And on top of that, the white media was racist. And people like Fred Rogan of LA didn't like that I was calling them racist and everything, and counted they had black friends, as they always, it's always I have black friends. But the real problem is exhibiting what Mark said to Ed Graney of the Review Journal. And basically, Mark only sees the issue from the perspective of being a Raiders owner rather than as a business person who has an ability to impact society, but also he doesn't see how he himself has contributed to society's racism in the form of the T. Martin issue, in the form of how he's treated me. I can go on and on. In my case, the counter would be, well, Zinni, you've been critical of the stadium. No, I've been constructively critical. In fact, I can walk in right now and say, I can say it right now. If they had listened to me, they would have had $800 million more for the stadium, which would have gotten them through a pandemic. Okay. But what happened was if I came up with an idea, the only people that really listened were the right people. The financial advisor for Clark County Finance Director Jessica Colvin, who granted me a private conference call with her FA. They treated me with respect. They treated me the respect that's commensurate with the recognition that they're talking to somebody who really has been there, done that on behalf of the mayor of Oakland, and understands how to help them in a way that maybe they didn't consider, and because he's found problems that they need to address. And that's exactly how I looked at it. A lot of you out there who are fans who don't understand this were reduced to choosing sides, which isn't always a good idea if the fact is that you're listening to something you don't understand. Just listen, just ask questions. Same with Mark Davis. There were items that Mark clearly did not understand regarding the stadium. Okay. And I've told this, it was not only evident to me in talking with Mark, but in talking with others as the stadium plans were formed. But Mark has a problem of institutional racism. Okay? And he's got to understand that and correct it. He can't shine it on. His comments regarding the murder and what led to the murder of George Floyd were sad. Because he says, I don't know what the problem is. He actually said that. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know who to talk to. He needs to start talking to himself in the mirror and asking himself, how does he see black people? Because he says he doesn't see color. He needs to see color. And he does. He's made comments about like Reggie McKenzie being sort of his complexion and saying we sort of had one of those as a black GM. And then, of course, there's T. Martin and how he's treated me. He has, as they say, a track record, okay? A track record of occurrences that point to, hey, he's got a race problem. And Mark is yet the picture of white privilege. His dad owned the Oakland Raiders. His dad gave him the Oakland Raiders. And rather than Mark understanding that's a gift, he's, in a sense, used it more as a weapon to try to essentially coerce people into liking him. Mark, at his very basic self, is a very likable person. I like Mark, okay? But I don't like the way Mark treats me. And I don't like Mark's views on race. He needs a lot of work. And he's not the only person in the NFL who does. Vic Fangio says he doesn't see that there's a race problem, and yet he has, out of 22 coaching positions, 4 filled by African Americans, none by a coordinator, no high position, including one of those 3 is the traditional position of running backs coach. That's where they slot you. That's like the black position in the NFL. Oh, blacks are running backs, right? Put them over there, okay? People don't want to hear this, but look, as
It's a lack of evolution of thinking.
And it's a lack of, not only is a lack of it's worse than that. It's a tone deafness, to everything that's going on around. And he's not the only one. Then Drew Brees comes up and makes a comment, and I'm thinking, what the heck? It's very easy for a person to just say, hey, Black Lives Matter rather than all lives matter. If somebody says Black Lives Matter, right? And if you want to turn it around, I have taken up the mantle of, the plight of people in the nation that had the genocide of many years ago, Armenia, and became very interested in that because it was an outrage, and the more needed to be talked about that. I had Taras Parental, my friend, on, who is a Cree Indian, Malay Indian, excuse me, and we talk openly about her heritage, positions that have opened up for Native Americans, and as well as roles and she's played and what she wants to do in the future. So my point is this: if I can be sympathetic and interested in somebody that doesn't look like me, there is zero reason that somebody else can't be interested in my story. So when Davis says, I don't see color, that's an insult. Mark Davis should see color. It's like you're only one color Raiders. No, that's bad, okay? And not only that, his dad really didn't think that way. Because if his dad did, Mark Davis' father elevated people who are African-American and women in a position as a way of saying to society, hey, you're not doing this right, and I'm going to show you a better way, okay? He was very sensitive to it, and he did see color from that perspective.
Or even with Tom Flores, the first Latino coach.
Exactly. Thank you very much. He did see color. Whereas Davis has an issue, a big-time issue.
And so that brings up the question is that how were these two people raised? Because as we know, Al Davis came from the nitty-gritty streets of New York, and Mark is a kid of privilege. So I would think that he would have some of that street smarts that his dad did. And for whatever reason, as you mentioned, being a person of privilege, maybe where he was raised or how he was raised had that old school mentality that we see now. Because Mark reminds me of the individual that says, oh, no, I don't have a problem with black people. Look, I even have a black statue, and it's a black jockey, right? He's that type of guy that he doesn't see how wrong that is. And then he points out to the mere fact that is a wrong thing to do. I mean, that's there's something that's disconnected with him.
Well, I think the problem, not just with Mark, but I think overall, because I don't want to turn into areas I don't know about. I don't know a lot about how Mark grew up. I know where he grew up. I knew where he moved on Mountain Boulevard in Oakland. There are people I knew at the King's X who were acquainted with him. But beyond that, I don't know much. There is a bigger story beyond him, and it is what's going on around the world. When you have people in London and Paris and everything, and they're talking about Black Lives Matter. And the reason why I say that is this. On the spectrum of people, you have light and you have dark. And if you believe in extremes, okay, people who look like me who are dark are treated the worst. And so at some point, that has to be acknowledged. It's not a matter of, well, black and then Asian or Hispanic or anything. No, black. You have people around the world, many of whom are not black, who are protesting and marching right now, who are saying Black Lives Matter. Because in particular in America, the rate of interracial marriages and relationships is so great that it's normal. It's normal to see people in commercials who are, you might have a black female, white male, or white female, black male family with a kid who's obviously biracial. And that's something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. I'm seeing it. I think it's amazing because it means now that pop culture solidly recognizes that we're interracial. But the world does. Even if it's not that, you've got somebody else who might be a cousin or anything else. But this is a problem that is focused on blacks. Okay? Blacks. Not anybody else. Blacks. Because, I mean, I'm sorry, even, look, I know a number of people who are Latino who can pass. Okay? It's a black person cannot pass. Even if you've ever met someone who is light-skinned and black who could pass, they are more bigoted, they are more racist than anybody else. They are flaming mad, okay? Because they've been in situations where they hear someone white talk because that person doesn't know that they're really black. And that person's saying all kinds of things to them that they would never say if that person were black. All right? So this is a major touch point where people need to change. And the way they need to change is to understand and say, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with anyone black. And this includes blacks. Over here in Atlanta, you had 6 officers arrested, 5 of them black, okay, African American, for going up to a car that was driven by 2 students, boyfriend and girlfriend, one at Morehouse, the other Spelman. They weren't even protesting. They were actually driving to get something to eat. They lost, as students do, as kids will do, they lost track of time. They're out enjoying each other, and it's warm. And all of a sudden, no warning, somebody, points at the door like this. The cop points this on his body cam, points the car like that, and then immediately shoots the taser weapon at the glass. The glass goes shattering all over the poor student's body. So he could have had cut eyes, cut by glass and everything else. Then, if that's not good enough, yanks the door open and yanks both of them out like they're cattle, including her, and then tells them, oh, we could have shot you. The person who does that kind of mentality, even if they're black, thinks that other blacks are worthless. And they're a police officer. That's a bad mix. You have a black person who doesn't like being black, who doesn't like black folks, okay? And so they seek to meter out the worst punishment they can on that person. And now they're fired. And I say thank you, Atlanta Police Chief and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, because that was freaking nuts, man. Okay? It was nuts. And, I have to say, as I'm saying this too, among the people that criticize me, particularly on Facebook, most of them have Latino surnames. What's going on? It's like they act like they hate me because I'm black and I'm critical. And I've held this on for years, and I've just been chalking it up, and I'm like, what's going on? Is it like a black Latino issue that I'm not aware of? Joseph, do you know, is there something where some Latinos don't like black people?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, just like there's black people that don't like other black people. I mean, that's just the way society is. I look from a perspective, like I can never tell you your black experience. But the way I relate with you is that a lot of the things that you're saying, I've dealt with, and a lot of people that look like me have dealt with. So when Black Lives Matter, you see a lot of Latinos that are defending that right because they're a person of color that, even though they're not black, they're, you could say, a lighter shade of that. But whenever you're a person of any color, at least from my perspective, like I said, I'm not diminishing your points of view, is that we face similar issues. Let me tell you a story. When I was in high school, when you're trying to find yourself, I excelled extremely well that they wanted me to go into AP English. But I wasn't very good in math, ironically enough. And so my counselor, her name was Mrs. Green. And to this day, I never forgot her. She was an older lady that came from the South. She was a counselor in a predominantly 95% Latino school. She looked at me and says, because I couldn't do AP math, she refused to put me in AP English. Then she further on, checked and looked at me up and down, looked at my hands. He says, well, you have big hands. I don't think college is for you. You could work in a warehouse.
What?
Now, that set me back. When I was a kid wanting to go to college and I was a freshman, sophomore, you're finding yourself. And when somebody in that situation puts you down like that, it took me a couple of years to get over that and find myself internally to fight it and say, oh, yes, I can. You know, it has to come deep within yourself. But that set me back for a couple of years because that resonated with me. It stuck in my head that told me that I wasn't worthy enough to go to school. And so I've felt some of those issues that they're feeling. I remember also getting pulled over by a cop in my early 20s, telling me that I was drinking when I wasn't drinking. He made me go through all the steps, and he later got pissed and cussed me out because I didn't. I passed the alcohol breathalyzer. He cussed me out because I passed.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I relate to a lot of those things. Like I said, here, you know, in Los Angeles during the early 90s, we had, again, the concept of like no color lines, where we had a lot of black and brown that just united. And the powers that be, they didn't like that. They didn't like that. And every opportunity, you would have instigators come in and try to drive that wedge between the two communities. And so when I see that hostility, it's because of ignorance, but also, yeah, and you got to realize, from someone from a Latino perspective, you got to realize also there's similar things that are happening to us every day as well. I sent you that video of that man in Linwood who got pulled out of his car, and it was a Latino guy because they said that he was selling drugs, and to this day he wasn't charged, and there's no proof of it, and they got mad because they were filming it. And if they didn't film it, what do you think might have happened? It might have been something similar.
I saw some video out your way where LA police officers were in a van and they were shooting at black kids running away from them. Shooting. This was like yesterday. And almost hit them, hit the car. But they were shooting at them. I showed my mom, I said, Mom, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And the problem, and going back to Mark Davis to bring it back home, and then Drew Brees, is it's very important to see color, because you're going to see color and you're going to react anyway. Even if a person says, hey, look, something positive about black folks, you're going to see color one way or the other. You might as well make it positive. And in my specific case, how Mark could have treated me differently is very easy. Simply given me the respect, that the same level of respect that the Clark County people gave me, or their financial advisor, saying, hey, you know, we want to answer your questions here. And by the way, I share my spreadsheet with them, a spreadsheet that I actually built for the Raiders, for Davis. I gave to their financial advisor, because he didn't have any idea about, you know, monetary flows through a stadium. He'd never done it before. Whereas I have the Oakland Baseball Sim World. I had a company called Sports Business Simulations. You know, we had make online simulation of sports organizations for use in the classroom. That's all I did. If I wasn't doing that, I was talking with students, trying to help them figure out how they can get better grades, which means run the model better, which means understand the dynamics of baseball business better, and stadium financing. Okay. So for them, so if Mark had simply said, hey, you know, I got your plan. We need to sit down and talk. Let's schedule a time. Okay. Let's schedule a time. Like anybody else does, that would have been entirely different. Because if they had issues or questions with something that I had done mathematically, we could flesh it out. But Piper Jaffray Investment Bankers had a conference call. Piper Jaffray Investment Bankers is one of the top investment banking companies in the world. They gave me a 6-person conference call. They blessed the numbers I came up with. They said they looked like their work to us. They wanted to know if I thought that Alameda County would serve as a backstop. Backstop is meaning, hey, if the bonds default, like could happen in Clark County, okay? If
Well,
they
they
look
back
like money, you have a backup, and the backup is the general fund, right? I said, I'm not going to speak for them because I had designed my bond issue to be kind of release revenue bond issue. And if things backed up, the way it was supposed to work was it was a privately owned facility development that would have been owned by the bank, and you would have had to restructure the bonds. In my case, the city and the county wouldn't have felt the thing anyway, yet through industrial development bond financing, we would be able to clear their financing. I needed an exemption from the state, actually from U.S. code, that limited the amount of housing I could have involved. And there was one other adjustment that escapes my mind, but there were very simple adjustments in the U.S. code that would have allowed us to sail. Okay, that one little adjustment would have been just fine, and we could have gotten it with the NFL's backing. We really could have gotten it. So, and it still hangs out there because I didn't get a chance to really talk with him about it, and Mark was treating me the way that he was. That innovation hangs out there undone. You know what I'm saying? Undone. And my prediction was, had it been done, it would have saved stadium financing for the next 50 years. You hear what I'm saying? All right. So my point is the intelligent thinking about stadium finance was lost because Mark has obvious issues about me and the way that I talk and present myself. And it does have to do with race. And one other thing, there's some people say, well, it's just like he doesn't like to be upstaged by other people. I'm not upstaging.
No, but you know what? Can I add something to that? Because okay.
Yeah, but I'm not upstaging him. I'm presenting something that ultimately benefits his pocketbook. All right. So my point is this: if I'm presenting something that benefits your pocketbook, the last thing you should be is intimidated. The first thing you should be is interested. Now, what were you going to say?
Well, from my perspective, the reason why that happens, at least with Mark, from my point of view, and based on what I see and what I read and what you show on the video, is that for me, it comes from insecurity. Because if he doesn't have all the answers, why should you? And when he told you, well, you go figure it out for me, he thought in his mind, that's the way he's going to, okay, this guy's going to stop bothering me, asking me questions because he's not going to know what to do. And when you called him on it and you're able to successfully do what you did, and then it's like, oh, who is he?
It's like I don't come off to, and it's an interesting perception you have because it's similar to one that another fellow had, but I don't go into any problem-solving routine with the specific idea of showing somebody up. I did with the idea of showing up the other media types because I thought they were being racist and stupid, and I said so. And because had I been white, or if I had been Mike Silver, they would have, oh, let's come on the radio show and talk about what Mark Davis asked you to do, Mike Silver, right? And or even
I believe you. I believe you because
I'm not about not being believed. My point is because it's my life. Okay, it's not a matter of not being believed. My point is, all right, because Silver right there saw it. He put it out on Twitter. I was there, a moment of zenny. I've known Mike Silver since he was 18. I was 21 at Cal, and I was in grad school. We go back that far. He's like a brother to me. I don't have to worry about Mike. Okay, so, but even he tried to run it through the NFL Network, and they didn't bite on it. But there's a reason why, if you think about the NFL Network, most of the people who are African American are athletes. There are a number of African Americans in media who are only in media that they can have on. They have Jim Trotter. They have Steve Weish. I think they had MJ. I'm not sure if MJ is still there or not, but it's a handful. The other African Americans who are involved are ex-players. The other African Americans are involved who are ex-players. And that's a great thing for the players, but keep wondering if it's like a selection thing. Like, well, when it comes to black folks, we're just going to consider the players, okay? That's how it's looked for a long time. So that's why I started my own media company, because then I'm not waiting. Like, this is what I do, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not waiting for them. And that's why I keep saying to other African Americans, make your own media. Forget Facebook and forget Twitter and forget these platforms that you didn't build. Build your own platform and use those platforms to promote your platform. And I say that to everybody. I don't care, friends, regardless of stripe, roll your own. Because today it's the best way you have to control your own message. And then if you have a large network, you can help others with their message. But getting back to the point, Mark has got to have a come to Jesus meeting with himself where he acknowledges his true number one sin. And that is, first of all, unless the person is an elected official he has to deal with, like the attorney general, he's got the people he knows who are African American are generally players or ex-players. So he's all the time subconsciously putting himself in a position where he is the owner of the team. And he has some monetary sway over these ex-players. He's got to broaden his network of people he knows who are black and not be intimidated by people like me who have constructive criticisms, like the one that I'm offering or advancing. I'm offering it because it's here. And not like I'm saying, here, take this. You want to have it? It's out there. Okay. And now is the time for him to really be aware of what he needs to work on. He and I have a mutual friend who has some of the same problems. And I know if she sees this, she may not like it, but it's true. This is a different time for a lot of people. This has been a welling up of stuff that has built up. And the difference between how people generally perceive this who are white and not in an interracial relationship, and those who are, and those who are also black alongside them, and Asian and Hispanic and all their colors, but primarily black, all right, is racism for us isn't a name call. Someone white like Mark thinks it has to rise to a level of name calling or something very obvious like a knee on the neck for 9 minutes that cuts your breathing off. That's obvious, okay? But we're talking about the less obvious microaggressions that happen to black folks every single day. Someone turning their head, not wanting to talk with them, someone else assuming that they're a criminal, someone else trying to do something that puts this cloud of suspicion over them, following them in a store to see where they're going or taking something, assuming that they are the help, right?
Or what's in case of the Rooney Rule, the lack of opportunity.
Well, what I'm talking about, though, is when I say the help, all right, I'm talking about being in a situation where you're staying on a corner at a hotel and the person thinks that you're the door person, all right? That's happened to me. And it depends on my mood. If I'm in a bad mood, I'll say, do I look like I have a uniform on? That person has a uniform on. Wake up. Okay? And that happens far less than it used to, but it would happen a lot. And some people, it got to a point where I could see where society was changing because I travel a lot. And it got to a point where I remember this older Caucasian gentleman came up and he was about to ask me that question. And he said, okay, you're not the guy he is. I said, right. The dorm guy's over there. All right. I'm waiting on Uber. Okay?
Can I share something similar that happens to even people like me? Is when someone white comes and asks me if I speak English. It's the same thing. It's because they see this face or they read my surname. The first thing that comes out of the mouth, oh, do you speak English? And it's not the same thing, but it's very similar parallels that you're talking about because you're standing by the door. They automatically assume that you're the doorman. So something similar that I can relate is that when they see you and they ask you, oh, do you speak English?
Yeah. Hey, let's close out because it's 2:14. I'll read the comments here and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Raiders SP West, what's up? And then he says something about this guy that I, whatever. Muhammad says on the the irony, everyone hated on Colin Kaepernick. Now everyone's saying he was right. Shaking my head. Yep. And good evening. And Rolling Dubs. Raiders SP says like they're doing today, dropping those bricks off where people are peacefully protesting. And then he says they don't like it when we as people unite because they can't control anything. And that's just it. And that's even with Mark. Mark, you don't be aware when you're coming off like you're the controller. And maybe, you know, and I'll say this, Mark very well may be aware of that because it might have been the reason why he let go of saying to players, well, you shouldn't talk about that because once you're in the uniform, which is a bad thing to say, you know. But he admits he said it, and he admits that he saw another way and he adjusted. And that's growth. That's a great thing to do. That's a great advancement, and it's great to be candid about it. But Mark still has another step to go. And the other step that he has to go is in this. Treat everybody with respect. In particular, if a person is black and they have a criticism, sell them. Treat them the same way that you would treat somebody white. Okay, because like Godfather Grizz is white. So he's like selling Godfather, but did they try to sell me about the stadium? Oh no, it's like I have to toe their line, period. Even if I'm saying something that's going to make money for them, you know? Now, it's called being mindful of the fact, as I love to say this, because a lot of people forget this. In this world, everybody is smart at something. Okay, the question for you is how you're going to treat those people so that you can unlock the best in them so that they want to help you. You know, that's the key.
And you elevate yourself when you do that as well.
Absolutely. Raiders SP says, in my case, I'm Filipino, but since my eyes are slanted, I have Asians thinking I'm Asian. Well, okay, the whole point, Raider SP, is that's different. And it's not, look, I could say if that might bother you, but let's say that you were in, because I don't know exactly what you look like. Let's say you were in Japan, and maybe you happen upon this Korean girl who really liked you because she thought you were Korean. Okay. So next thing you know, you've got a girlfriend. The reason I say that is because I met a Korean woman. This goes all the way back to gorgeous, all the way back to 1987 when I went to Tokyo. And I had no idea that there was a prejudice of Japanese against Koreans until I met her. All right. So that kind of recognition, all right, people are going to think you're one way or the other, but I'll bet your credits navy beans if the person who thinks that is really attractive and it works for you, you're not going to be, you know, bothering about it. Okay. So that's different. We're talking about how people are discriminated against and disrespected to a level that level. I got to go. But hey, folks, I'll be back. We'll see you tomorrow. Don't go anywhere, Joseph. All right.
All right.
Okay. All right.